the presentation. She is our district helping teacher for early learning, and she has a vast knowledge of early learning and works closely with our K teachers around helping them support students in the classroom. And she's just going to give you a bit of background information of what to expect, but also give you a little information about a series that we put on closer to the start of K for folks so that they get a lot more information about, next steps regarding the process. So Mel, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you. I think you can see me. Okay, there we are. As David said, I'm the district helping teacher for early learning, and eventually you'll start to see possibly some emails come out from me once you have registered. It takes a while for the registration to process, and then eventually I'm able to send things out to school and they can get a full list and some more information out to you about some things that we have sort of programming sort of happening that you might be able to partake in prior to your child coming to kindergarten. So I'm going to share my screen and just go to very quickly through a few things that we will talk about in the future when we see you again, hopefully. Are we good? Trish, can we see my slides?
Yes, we can see them.
Okay, awesome, fantastic. So in our province, we obviously have the kindergarten curriculum, and we also have an overarching framework called the Early Learning Framework. And that framework actually gets covered from zero, from birth to 8 years. So it's sort of a wide range, just a framework, and then our curriculum sort of underlies in that. And we talk a lot about how the learning is relational, and that we have the child, and then we have the family or parent as the first teacher, and school community and as the second teacher. And then we actually say the third teacher is actually the direct environment or the classroom in which the children learn. So our early learning framework is really connected to the First People's Principles of Learning as well. And we like to work closely with our Indigenous ways. And I don't know why my slide won't switch here. Hold on. It will go back, but not forward. I have the closed caption. I might have to move. Hold on, sorry. Oh, there we go. So you'll notice in this slide that I have play as the center of the circle, and that all of our sort of subject areas surround that, and that we would love children to be learning through play or playful learning throughout the day in kindergarten. Not just kindergarten, actually, as kids go up through. Kindergarten, grade 12 would be great, playful learning. I'm going to talk quickly, and this is the Coles Notes version, as we would say, because we are going to do an evening in early April, and I'll have a date and a QR code that you'll be able to scan a little bit later to register for this. But I just want to go over real quick so that you're thinking about these things, because I have a lot of parents approach me and say, I'm not sure my kid is ready for kindergarten, or what does it mean for my kid to be ready for kindergarten? I sort of cross out the word readiness because I want to be careful of how we word that, because the children at this age, 4 and 5, they're all at very, very different places, socially, emotionally, academically, physically. So it's really, I don't want to say if they're ready for kindergarten. Our whole idea is in education is that we take your child, meet the child where they are at this moment, and then we move them along, hopefully the continuum as things go along. We will. So what are we looking for? And I'm going to dig into all this a lot more in our Thriving in Kindergarten session. But I just want to go through some of the things we will talk about during that session. So how can you as parents or caregivers support children before and during kindergarten? So I've just listed them here, but in the session, Thriving in Kindergarten session later in April, we'll go through these a little bit deeper. But the first one I have top of the list is getting your kid into a routine. It takes a long time to get kids in a pattern to sleep and do sleep routines. I've had 2 children, they're now 20 and 21. And so I am speaking from a parent's point of view as well as a teacher's point of view. And so I would say before kindergarten is better time to get them in a really good sleep routine. And they say that children at that age need about 12 hours sleep to be fully sort of functional, engaged, and aware the next day. And I put activities there because it really strongly suggests that in kindergarten that year that kids are not over stimulated with a lot of extracurricular activities outside of school. We do find, and even if your kids have done preschool before, we do find kids really tired at the end of kindergarten. They come home and they're exhausted. So that sleep and sort of keeping things really calm and meals together and things like that. And that's why I put nutrition are really, really important, setting them up for sort of positive experience at school. And I've put screen time, and we'll talk quite a bit at this at our Thriving in Kindergarten. And just to let you know that before 2 years old, the recommendation is 0 technology and for brain development. And from 2 to, I think it's 2 to 6, 2 to 5 is 1 hour or less a day of screen time. And that would include TV, an iPhone, an iPad, any kind of screen at all. So just to be aware of that, it's really important to, unless it's being used as a tool because there is an exceptional learning need. We don't use technology a lot at school. At least kids don't get individual technology, very little in kindergarten. So if they're used to being on that long periods of time and then we're taking that away just before they go to kindergarten, it's a really, really huge adjustment. So it's a great thing to start right now. If they have a lot of screen time, is to wean them off that screen time. We're looking for some independence. Can they button their coats? Can they zip their zippers? It's something you can start practicing now. Social skills, and I will give you some ways you can start to do that, but getting them involved with things in the community, going to the library with them in a play group, having them together and networking with other children prior to kindergarten. Emotional wellness, checking in with their emotions. They will be overtired and emotional, especially that first year. So it really has an effect. Fine motor. Fine motor means, of course, our little small muscles. So it doesn't have to be holding a pencil. In order to get good fine motor, we pinch things, we grab things, we learn to cut things, we use our fork, we feed ourselves. All those things. We practice going to the bathroom ahead of time. That's not the fine motor, but it's a really important one because that we'll talk about a bit more at Thriving in Kindergarten. And then gross motor, get them out to the playgrounds, get them climbing the monkey bars and on the swings and figuring how to do that on their own, right? Because when they go out on the playground with a ton of kids, we want them to have some confidence in that. And oral language, meaning lots of speaking, lots of back and forth conversation with your child, whether it's in your mother tongue, your own language, or English. Either way, those are really important times and learning for kids. Actually, it's the precursor to children being readers is their oral language. And then books. You can get lots of free books, get a library card, and borrow books. The more hands-on of books, the better. And play materials. The more the kids get to play, the more they are actually working their brains. And that's what they're supposed to do at that age. 0 to 5, they're not supposed to be with a pen and or pencil and paper. They are supposed to be engaged in play and figuring things out. And that is how they are developing their brain. 92% brain development from 0 to 5 years old. So in order, if you don't know of any kind of groups or places that you can take your kids, a community center offers tons. But we also have our Ministry of Education. We actually have in our school district 7 Strong Starts. 1 Strong Start, we consider the 8th one because they have a morning and an afternoon with 2 different facilitators. So feel free to take a screenshot of this if you want. And the QR code in that corner on that poster actually directs you right to the district website, to the Strong Start section. And these are free programmings. The times are all there. You can bring your kid, they can play. They're all in a school. The Riverside Center one is a little bit of a different situation, but it's a fabulous center as well. So we encourage you, get your kids out as much as possible to any kind of activity. And these are free of charge. Later in the year, we don't have the advertisement done for this, but you will get an email through your school once you've registered eventually about the Kinder Connect fairs that will be happening. And there'll only be 3 happening, basically a central, west, and east. And they will be a couple hours, and there'll be sort of community involved. There'll be some K teachers, some ECEs. We'll have some activities and a book to give away. And so there'll be a registration sent out for that, just so kids are just connecting, one more little touch point, one more little connection to our district. And then we have a Thriving in Kindergarten evening, which is a Zoom session that we're going to dig in a little bit deeper about those things. And you can ask questions about kindergarten as well. And you can scan this right now if you want and register for this event. And that's it's about 1 hour and 15 minutes on Tuesday, April the 2nd, 2024. Again, you feel free to screenshot this if you would like. And then every single school offers a Ready Set Kindergarten or a welcome to kindergarten in May or June. Every school will have a different date for that. That information will come directly from your school, sometime usually early May or end of April. And you will get to go visit the school, visit the classrooms, kindergarten classrooms, visit the gym, visit the library, the office. And so the kids, want to feel that sense of belonging. So the schools do a beautiful little welcome to the kindergarten students, and you'll get times and dates for that later. And we usually, as a district, we provide each student with a bag, as you can see in the left-hand corner. And you'll get some information. We give your kids a book and some little supplies that they can use at home. And I get a lot of questions about this. Do our kids start full-time right away? We do not in kindergarten. We have something called gradual entry. And do not screenshot this because this is last year's schedule, but I'm just trying to give you an idea of what it could look like. There's about 5 different schedules that the school gets to choose from, depending on what works with their numbers and all those things. But you'll notice that some days your kids would only come for a half a day. See, these 3 days, a group would only come for half a day. And then you have intake meetings where you'll meet the teacher with your child individually or in a little small group. Then both groups together in shortened hours. So we gradually enter them into the system, and then regular hours begin by that 3rd week. I've attached some resources, and David, I don't know if you can help me put those in the link. So actually, you know what? I can work on it when you're speaking. And these are free resources, and just to let you know, any kind of curriculum, anything like that, the BC government website, everything is free for you to look at and what kindergarten expectations are and all those things. You will get the When I Go to Kindergarten and a Guide for Families in your bag at your Ready Set Kindergarten event. And then they also have a Play Today guide for families and Let's Play, some play and fun ideas. They come in many different languages. So if you have friends that speak different languages and would struggle to read in the English, we have this opportunity for them to read this material ahead of time. And that's really all I have for today. I hope that was okay. Does anybody have any questions?
Thanks, Melanie. I think that was great, especially hopeful that everyone takes Mel up on those opportunities for all those exciting learning events coming up, especially in the new year. Why don't we pause for a few questions for your section before I get into the registration, because there might be some very different questions on the part that I'm about to show.
Nothing. I've explained everything.
doesn't look like we have any questions at the moment. But if at
Okay.
any point in time anybody thinks of any questions, we will have a question period at the very, very end. If you think you might forget your question, just put it in the chat and we will address that at the end.
Thank you.
And I think just to reiterate what Mel shared, and we usually get this question every time we talk to parents is, do my children need to know all the ABCs? Do they need to? And the simple question is no. I mean, at the end of the day, it's really about, like Mel said, we take the students where they are, and that's where our educational professionals shine in really working with your children. So I'm going to share my screen, and my presentation isn't as exciting as Mel's because I get to talk a bit about the nuts and bolts on registration. So I'm going to start with a slide deck here. Hopefully you can see that. Does everyone see that? Yes, no?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay. And I don't think I'm going to go into presentation mode because I just wanted to sort of highlight a few things. Well, maybe I'll try that, see what happens. Just a moment. How does that look for everyone?
Looks good.
Okay. So one of the key things that I think everyone has to be aware of on the call is that registration does start in January. All of these dates, registration opens at noon, and you can see that it's broken into different sections. So for example, we start with January 9th, siblings. That opens at noon. Then we open registration up the next day, January 10th, environmental school. And then choice registration, which is for Montessori and French immersion, opens on the 17th. And then general registration on the 31st. And then late registration February 21st. And then really open registration happens throughout that school year. But again, noon is one of the key pieces to that is, and I'll talk a lot more about being prepared for that registration date and what you need to do, but you need to know that it is at noon. And for example, choice and general registration, some of those programs or some of those schools can fill up by 12:01, so literally 1 minute after registration. So you want to make sure that you just don't go on the site at 12:20 and then be disappointed if you didn't get your catchment school or you didn't get French immersion, for example. This is the acceptance criteria, which I think is very important to also understand, is that we always strive and are 100% successful in ensuring siblings are able to attend their school. So if you already have an older sibling in a school, then your younger sibling is automatically going to get in. We don't separate children, so that's an important piece to know. In catchment proof of residence is the second criteria, and we do ask for multiple documents, and I'll get to that later in the presentation, and those have to be uploaded to our parent portal when requested. Next one is in catchment daycare. Again, you need to have proof of daycare, and you need to ensure that the daycare is in the catchment of the school that you're desiring. And then finally, out of catchment without siblings, and then out of district. So again, siblings trumps all, and then in catchment after that. I'll get to this slide later, but one of the things, in case I don't have time to get to it, there's a practice period, and that's something I'll talk about, where you can actually go into the portal and practice the registration system. So I'm going to flip over now to the district website. And so I've talked about the dates, I've talked about the acceptance criteria, and I'm going to now talk about the process. And the process is important. All registrations in our district K to 12 are done through our parent portal. There's no paper-based registration. There's no school registration where you're going to the school. It's all done through the parent portal. So it's really important, and I would suggest you actually do it now, is you create your parent portal account. And I'll show you how you can do that. And then you can actually go in, like I said, and go through a mock registration. So what that means is you can actually go through and do a pretend registration from beginning to end. And then when registration day comes, you know what questions are being asked, you know what paperwork, you know how to put your address into school locator, and there's no surprises, because let's face it, that day of registration, wanting to get into the school, maybe your catchment school, is stressful, and you want to take as much stress out of your life as possible. So I've gone over the registration dates, all of the information that I've been sharing with you. If you go to our district website, which is at www.st42.ca, and you go to the Parents tab, you can find, for example, K registration is right here. And when you go and click on that tab, you'll get this information. Again, those are the dates that I already shared with you. I strongly suggest you download this brochure because it covers all of the, well, most of the material that I'm talking about, including the criteria of acceptance. It goes over, again, further details of the dates. It has what supporting documents that you need at time of when we request these, specifically on how to prove your residence, and also to how to prove that you're BC and Canadian resident, or that you have the appropriate documentation to be getting a free education in BC. Again, the acceptance criteria. And also, this is an important one. If you have no computer at home, we've partnered with the Maple Ridge Public Library and the Pitt Meadows Public Library, and all of the schools have technology available for you to use. The Maple Ridge and Pitt Meadows Public Library are ready for you on those registration dates. You can walk in and you can book a computer. If you're planning to go to your home school, though, or a school in your neighborhood, you should be giving them at least a day or two notice that you are planning to come in, so they can have a laptop ready for you, turned on and everything. You certainly don't want to walk through the door at 5 minutes to 12 and say, I'd like to borrow a computer for registration, because it's not fair to the school, and it's not fair for you to add stress in your life. And then finally, something that I'll talk a little bit more on, but this is an important piece. During registration, or if you're trying the practice for registration, or if you have any further questions around the registration, there's 2 key phone numbers and then an email. So if you have any questions about registration, you can email reghelp@SD42. That's this email address right here. If you have technical questions, then you can phone this number. A lot of times we'll get this when people are calling when they're registering. And then if you have general inquiries, this number, the 6218, are key. But one of the things I want to reiterate, and I'll probably say it about 3 or 4 times in this presentation, is the timestamp for your registration occurs the moment that you enter into the system when you click on the registration link. So I'll say that again. The timestamp, it occurs, or is the stamp of when you actually enter the system. So it's not a race for you to get through and finish your submission, because that doesn't matter. If you take 10 minutes or an hour to complete your registration, it's when you actually entered the system. So you want to take your time, you want to do it right, and you don't want to make any errors, because any errors may cause further delays in your child's registration. So just looking to see what else we have here. I've gone over supporting documents. I'm going to show you another section of the website that I think is quite important. And that's, again, if you go to the district website, you go under Parents, and you go to School Locator. I would suggest you do this, even if you do it tonight. This is an excellent site that a lot of people use, for example, if they're looking at buying a new home, or they're renting an apartment or something, and they want to know what their catchment school is. If you click on this search, button here, you can then put in an address, and this is where it catches a lot of people. Like if I live on 240th and I tried to put in street, I'm going to get an error. It doesn't work. But what I'm supposed to do, if you notice, is I'm supposed to put in capital ST. Whoops. And then when I do find my school, it will ask for my house number, and then it shows you all of the ranges. So then I say my house is 106, 110. I click on that, and now it shows, okay, this is my elementary school, Tuscanela, and also this is what my French immersion school is, and also my secondary school is SRT. This is super helpful for a couple of reasons. First, you're finding out what your catchment school is before you're actually registering. Second is you've got a good understanding of how to enter your address, and you enter your address via the Canada Post method. So a lot of times that's not, how we usually write addresses. Like I said, I would normally write street, but you want to test that because that's how you enter this registration system in the portal itself. I'm going to go back to the slide deck now and show you what it looks like from a practice point of view. And then I'll get to some questions here. So again, if you already have a student registered in the school system and it's been a little fuzzy and you'd like to go back and practice registering what it would look like on the day of registration, if you go into your parent portal account right now, you go under register tab and you go to practice form, and that practice form will actually bring up a form that looks, well, it looks exactly like the registration system. You go through, answer all of the questions, and you'll be prepared for K-Reg. If you're new, then this is what your screen will look like. And what I mean by new is you do not have a kid currently registered in our school system. So this is your first child going into K. You don't have a parent portal. You just created your parent portal account. So when you log in, you'll see this practice form button here at the bottom left-hand corner. And when you click on that, you can go through the system. So that's sort of the details. And you can begin your request and go into the practice form. Again, where do I create a parent portal account? Well, let's go to that. I'm sorry if I'm jumping around a little bit, but I just wanted to show you the live website so then you're able to go back and forth to that. So again, if I go back to the school district site and I go here under the parent tab again, and I go down just a little over halfway and I pick parent portal, it shows me the features. So once your child is registered in the system, they're attending school this coming fall, you're going to use the parent portal from everything from paying school fees to approving field trip notices to internet acceptable use of policy. It is our one-stop shop in SD42 really to handle the business of school. But if you click on this little tab here, this is the link that you would click on to get to the parents portal. So again, it's http parents.sd42.ca. There's also a link on the main page. And from there, you can actually then go to the parent portal, excuse me, and create that account and do that practice. So I'm just going through my list. I've talked about timestamps. Again, remember the timestamp starts when you actually click on that registration link. Take your time. The window is open for, I believe, 10 hours, as long as you don't close the browser window. So what I mean by that is you have up to 10 hours to complete your registration with your initial timestamp, as long as you don't quit your computer, close the web browser. So take your time, call those numbers if you have any questions. I'm sorry, you have 12 hours, not 10 hours to complete your process. And again, if you have any problems, you reach out. And I think I'm going to stop there, and I'll open up to questions. And you can't let me off as easy as you let off Mel.
I have a question.
Okay.
I have a son who has some speech problems, and I understand that during the registration process, there's a spot to, I guess, make a note on it in case he needs additional help. Where would I find that, or is it?
It's part of the registration process.
So it's an actual box that'll come up that we just.
Yeah, there's a radio button question that says, does your child have any special needs? And if you check that box, then it expands, and then it asks you to add additional details, because that is used then by our learning services team to reach out and connect with you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other live questions before I go to the chat?
Sorry, I have a quick question. What is Enviro registration? What does that mean?
Oh, good question. So Enviro, we have an environmental school, which is an outdoor school, and it's quite a unique program. So I would suggest, if that's something you want to explore, if you go to our district website, you can, under programs, you can read all about it. You can watch a video about it. But basically, the kids are outside learning 10 months out of the year. It's quite a unique program.
Okay, cool. So other than that case and French immersion choice, let's say I want to register for Yenadin.
And Montessori too. Montessori.
So if it's just Yenadin, which is a regular school, then it's January 31st is when the registration opens. Is that correct? I don't want to go on the wrong date and miss my chance.
Yeah, and again, you want to definitely make sure that you've got these dates written on your calendar. So general is January 31st till February 6th. Yes.
Okay, and then the way to get to the registration link quickly is just to go to the registration tab and go to the next year, 2024, 2025, and there'll be some kind of link there to start the process.
What I would suggest is you create your parent portal account. You've gone through and done that test, that practice one.
Yes.
And then I would say at 11:30, 11:45, the day of registration, log into the parent portal, go to that spot. It will show for register. It will show a countdown timer saying, 15 minutes before registration opens. And then literally you'll see all of a sudden the button go from red to green when it opens, and you click on it, and that's when your timestamp starts, or that's when your timestamp.
I see. I just want to make sure I get to that quickly. So I already have an account with the parent portal. I see the registration tab right now, and if I click it, there's not much there. It just says introduction and then a bunch of information there. But so in that registration tab is where that link is going to show up and the countdown?
Yeah. And what you're seeing too is, of course, we're doing K-12 registration ongoing right now. So if a family moved into the district, they would be using the parent portal to register their child for this school year. So there's two different systems at play here right now.
Okay, so just go to that main registration tab.
Yeah.
A little bit.
And if for example, you're not sure, I would go there at 11 a.m. If you don't see it, call that number that I had on the screen or that you find in the website and say, hey, I don't see this. Like, you don't want to be panicking at 5 to 12.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Yeah.
All right. We've got a few questions in the chat. There's a question whether or not Tuscanela is one of the schools that fills up in a minute.
Short answer, yes. We've had, unfortunately, folks that living right across the street from Tuscanela that did not get into their catchment. That being said, we've been able to usually place them at Albion, which is not that far. It's just around the corner and down to 40th. But parents are sometimes shocked that, you know, they didn't get into their catchment school. So part of my job tonight is to make sure folks understand that, you know, it's almost like buying Taylor Swift tickets. I hate to say it.
That's a very good analogy. How many kids are able to register for the environmental school, Montessori, and French immersion? So three separate pieces.
Each one of them have separate numbers. I don't know those numbers off the top of my head. I can tell you French immersion has probably the highest number count because, of course, we have multiple French immersion schools across our district. So usually a parent, if they didn't get into their catchment French immersion school and we have space in others, they're offered another seat. Montessori is probably the next smallest because, of course, Montessori is only in Hammond. So I'm not sure how many classes normally I think they have maybe 2K classes. And then the smallest is probably the environmental school, which might only have a handful of seats available. And if you're interested in Enviro, I would reach out to the principal of the environmental school, you know, ASAP, and just start asking questions because sometimes it's not for them. You know, you find out exactly what the school is. It doesn't have a bricks and mortar building. Oh, okay, well, maybe that's not the right fit for my child, or maybe it is, and you really want to pursue that. But that's, again, something you want to start early.
And then we've got our lovely question that comes up every year about twins. So I can answer that question. So when you do register twins, it is the timestamp of the first twin that is used to establish your timestamp in the registration process. And even if you get a message that says that your twins are registered at two separate schools, which has happened in the past, that will get rectified and they will both be at the same school. So do not panic if that does happen. So you do not need to simultaneously register both of the twins. It will be the first twins timestamp that's used. Did I forget anything with that?
No, it's perfect.
Okay.
Next year, you're doing this presentation.
Right. If you're at a catchment, but your emergency contact / pickup person is in the catchment, does that change priority in getting in?
No, it's what your catchment is. And it would be really good for folks to go on to the website, go under the documentation tab and make sure that you've got the needed documentation, because sometimes people don't realize, let's use an example, you've moved, you never bothered changing the address on your driver's license. You don't have any utility bills to prove your new address, and now you're struggling to get into your school.
So there was one that I just saw that I missed. So if you're already registered in Strong Start at your catchment elementary, would you choose existing student or new student?
New student, because we don't actually transfer the Strong Start records over to the school and inside the parent portal until June.
Okay. Then we had a question that I swear was there and now I've lost it. But if you only have one elementary school in your catchment and kindergarten fills up, what happens then?
When you're registering in the portal, you'll actually see there's your catchment school, which will be auto-populated by the address that you've put in, as long as you've done that correctly. And then you'll have your first choice and second choice. So you as a parent have an option, or caregiver, to put in a first and second choice. And we encourage folks to do that, because sometimes I'll use Tuscanela, for example, and I'll use the other example of, you know, an after-school caregiver might, or a grandparent or someone might be living in the Alexander Robinson area. So even though they live in Tuscanela, they don't want Tuscanela. So it's their catchment school, but they don't want it. They want AR. Well, we know that they're not all families that live in Tuscanel are going to get into Tuscanel. So that actually helps us, the district, because then we can put that student into AR because that's what they're hoping for. And then that allows one more seat available to an in-catchment Tuscanel student.
Perfect. And then I think I'm going to get you to screen share once more into the district website to show where we can look for before and after school care options for our elementary schools. And if there are any dates that our new parents need to be mindful of.
Okay, as long as the IT gods are in my favor. See. And you were talking about before and after school care?
Yes, before and after school care.
So that I have to navigate and find that in our website because it's not something I normally look for. I can answer some questions about that because we have opened, for example, one after school care in Kanaka Creek just recently.
I think it was right at the very top of the parents tab.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, the after school programming, which is different than after school care. What I would suggest with like after school I'll talk a little bit about after school programs because that is a program that we're quite proud of as a district. Lots of after school programming for kids in different sites. So you can see there are some for K students. The Active Kids Club is an after school care program. It's in a number of schools, as you can see, but there are other options too with daycare that we have on site, but that's sort of outside of the scope of this presentation. Is there something else you wanted me to talk about, Trish?
No, so there are several daycares that do pick up and drop off at the schools. That would be a question probably for the daycare centers that surround your schools. That would be a better question for them as to whether or not they have before and after school care and whether or not they do or do not pick up. There's Little Willows, Small Steps, and one other one that I can think of that does before and after school care pick up and drop off to some of our schools, but you would have to contact them directly to find out if they do that for your catchment school.
And you know, we have a manager of childcare that Nicole knows this stuff inside out. She could definitely do a future presentation to families. She has finished over the last 6 months a review of all childcare options in our schools and has created a report. So I think that would be something you might want to look at.
David, I just linked you to I put a link in there in the chat for ST42 childcare facilities.
Oh, thank you. I just couldn't find it on the, okay, so I'll share my screen here. I was all in registration mode. I did not have those screens prepared.
Contact information in that on the website as well.
Thank you so much. So, okay, that's third down. For some reason, I was not able to see that. So you'll see, yeah, all of those are located. Lots of details in here. But again,
the brochure is in there, David, too. If you look, scroll right to the bottom. Right to the bottom, child care facility.
Oh, there you go. And if I click on that, I'll lose this page. But yeah, certainly look at that. A lot of the district, just so you know, we don't run any daycare centers ourselves. We partner either through like a Little Willows that's renting a space from the district, or partnerships with the city of Maple Ridge, like an Active Kids program, which is an after-school care license program. But we as a school district do not run before school or after school care.
Okay.
Mel, is there anything else I missed on that? No.
Okay, and if the school fills up by 12:01, will you know if a school has filled up before registration, or so that you can choose another school? But I believe we choose up to 3 options on the registration form.
That's correct. So you won't know as a parent right away if you get in a school or not. What you'll basically get is an automatic email saying thank you for your child's registration, and then you'll notice those windows are staggered. Those environmental, sibling, choice. There's times or dates between those. That's when we actually go into the parent portal, myself and my work colleagues, and we place the students in the appropriate schools based on the acceptance criteria. So sometimes it may look like a school's full, but when you actually look more closely, they haven't met the registration requirements, so we move to the next child.
Okay, and the next question is, what date would we use for the requested date to begin the registration process at Yenadin? So again, that would defer back to if you have a sibling in that school, if you're in catchment, out of catchment.
Right. We have had in the past, probably shouldn't say this, but I will, parents that have an older sibling in the school miss that sibling phase. We do bend over backwards to make sure that sibling is registered in the school. We never separate kids at elementary. But be advised that when your child gets into high school, sibling is not the first one on the list. It's actually second. It's catchment. So you could very well have a student going to one high school and another child going to another high school. But that's not like that in elementary.
Okay. And to confirm, just wanted to make sure that they heard correctly. If their child is attending a daycare in Silver Valley, does that give the child priority for Yenadin?
Well, first of all, we've seen this time and time again. You want to put your daycare address into the school locator to see if it does fall actually inside of the school that you desire. But I'm also going to say that schools across Maple Ridge and Pitt Meadows are very full, and it's rare sometimes for a family to get their catchment school based on, or their daycare school. Normally, a lot of schools, especially in the East Zone, fill up first with catchment students, and not even all of those are able to get into their catchment school. So we don't even get to the daycare phase. Siblings, catchment, and then it closes. So I just wanted to, not all schools, but I just wanted to make sure folks understand that.
And then how difficult is it to register for an out of catchment school?
Well, I would say Tuscanela be next to impossible, because we can't get all the people that live in catchment normally into that school. It really depends on what school you're looking at. The best thing to do if you have any questions about that is reach out to the building principal, even now, and say, I'm thinking of wanting to attend your school. In the past, how often has out of catchment students been accepted? And they'll be honest. They'll say, well, yeah, no problem here, but the best thing is to communicate with the building principal.
Okay, and the next question is, we desire to enroll our children in a school outside of our catchment area and outside of our district, SD 75. Could you please offer some guidance on registration procedure? Our assumption is that we should initially register them at our catchment school and subsequently complete an out of catchment and out of district form with the alternate district.
So I just want to make sure I've got clarity on this. They want to register to SD 75. Is that what I said? You
I'm
said?
assuming so. That's how it reads.
I'm just looking at it.
That's correct. Their wife is a
Oh,
teacher in
teacher.
Mission.
Well, I would suggest if they want to register their children in the Mission School District, that they go directly to the Mission School District and register and see what because our practices around registration and acceptance criteria and parent portal are very different than other school districts. So you don't want to assume what I'm sharing with you tonight is this the way it happens in Mission or Coquitlam or any Langley, any of those surrounding school districts. So I would certainly suggest that you reach out to Mission first and see what they say. As a backup plan, you may want to register your child in your catchment school here. So that's your backup plan. We see that a number of times when we go to actually say, okay, it's time now for you to submit your paperwork, your proof of address. A family will say, well, actually, no, we've changed our mind. We've registered in Coquitlam. Fair enough. And then we cancel the registration. So I would suggest you do two things. You talk to Mission, find out what their procedure is, be prepped for that, but also have your child registered in in your catchment school so that they have a place to land in come September.
Okay. So I have the rest of my DPAC exec. Keep me honest, did we miss any questions on Zoom or on the YouTube channel?
Nothing on YouTube.
Nothing on YouTube. Okay.
I appreciate everyone sticking with us. You know, it's not the most exciting material, but I think it's important. And if I leave you with any parting comments is life is stressful enough. If we can reduce stress in our lives, I would say let's do that. And the first thing you can do is register for that portal account now. Go into the system and do that practice registration. Go into the school locator. Make sure you understand your address and what your catchment school is. And if you have any questions, reach out to us now. You certainly don't want to be panicking the day of. Life's too short for that.
Very, very true. And then just as a parting note from Pat, oh, wait, one more question. What if your child currently goes to the preschool at Tuscanela? Does that help?
That would fall under daycare. I do not believe any daycare students were accepted into Tuscanela because, of course, catchment, unless you live in catchment and you also attend that preschool, then you got the double whammy. But again, don't think just because you've got those two things that, you know, at 12:10, I'm going to go into the registration system, because timestamp rules all.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had parents where it was 2-second difference between getting into a school and not. Oh, I'll say one last thing. Remember, timestamp starts when you get into the system. So once you're there, that's already programmed into the system. Take your time. You have 12 hours to complete your form.
Once you push the button.
Once you push the button.
Yeah, so don't just open your portal and leave it open and hope that that helps. You need to actually push the button to start the registration before that timestamp will be accounted.
Yeah.
Okay, and then just as a parting pack note, if you know your school that your child will be registered in, we do strongly encourage you all to attend the AGM for your school's pack, which is usually in May or June, and just get to know the school, put your name forward to be on the executive, sign up to be a volunteer, get involved. It's a really great way to have your ear to the ground for what's happening in your kid's school, and show up at a PAC meeting where the administrators come and present on all the things that are happening. And that's how you learn about all of the fundraisers and all of the special events and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, Was there
Can I
any?
add one more piece, Trish? Sorry.
Just one more
Um,
last thing.
One more. Mel actually earlier in the conversation did paste in the links to all of those great PDF documents that she was sharing in her presentation. And I know that sort of got buried in the text chat, so I posted it again. These were the play documents by the province, and I guess there's links also to the multi-language versions of those, right, Mel? So certainly explore those also. Okay, I'm done, promise, Trish.
Okay. Before we let everyone go for the evening, are there any last questions that anybody would like to ask before we let everyone go for the evening? You can feel free to raise your hand, unmute yourself, put it in the chat, put it on our YouTube channel. Nope, seeing none. All right, well, thank you everyone for coming out tonight. I hope the information shared was helpful. Thank you to Melanie and David for presenting tonight and giving us all of the information. And hopefully we will see you all in September with your new kiddos in kindergarten.